I've had an idea for a video I've wanted to make since January, and I haven't been able to make it because I didn't have the right prop. So, I've just had this thing sitting off to the side of my set since then, because I was going to use it in the video, but now I do have the correct prop. So that video is going to come out soon. Welcome to Week in Weird. Hello and welcome to Week in Weird. My name is GiBi, and this is your episode for the last week of March 2022. The first story we're going to launch into today is about the beautiful voice of an angel political mastermind, Kid Rock. Kid Rock says Donald Trump sought his advice on North Korea and Islamic State. During the Trump administration, there were a lot of stories of people who were close to him going to the media and leaking outlandish things that he had said, and whether you believe them or not depends on how outlandish you think Trump is. But when you have Kid Rock saying this, and Kid Rock is an avowed Trump supporter, you kind of have to believe it. Even though we should take this with a grain of salt, I'm going to go on a limb and say that this probably did happen. Anyway, here's the story. The rapper Kid Rock said Donald Trump once asked him for advice about US policy on Islamic State and North Korea. Because the article's by The Guardian, it then has a couple paragraphs about nonsense before we get to the actual point of the story. In a famous picture from 2017, the rapper was shown in the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk with Trump, the rock musician Ted Nugent, and Sarah Palin. I was there with Trump one day when he ended the caliphate, Kid Rock said. He wanted to put out a tweet. I don't like to speak out of school, I hope I'm not, but the tweet was, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, you know, quote, if you ever join the caliphate, you know, trying to do this, you're going to be dead. So a lot of this article is just quotes from him where he's also quoting himself and Trump in a back and forth conversation. So instead of reading that and confusing you, I'm going to summarize what each paragraph says. Basically, Trump wanted his opinion on a tweet that he was going to send, and he was like, yeah, man, that's great. And then Trump sends it out, and it's actually been politically correctified, which is surprising coming from Trump. Apparently, Trump also showed him a map, and he was like, what am I supposed to do with this? I just make music. Trump asked him, what do you think we should do about North Korea? Now, the funniest thing in the article is at the very bottom, it's asking me to donate money to The Guardian, which, no. Next story, and I swear I did not mean for all these to be politically charged, that's just what happened this week. Disney says it regrets racist cheer by high school team. Disney regretting racism is something we've seen quite a lot in the last couple weeks. So the backstory is that there was a cheerleading team from a high school that was performing at the Florida Disney World Park. Disneyland Park, I don't know the difference. And as part of their cheer, they were doing what people consider to be a racially inappropriate dance, and people filmed them. A widely circulated video of the high school Indianettes from Texas shows the team dancing and chanting, "Scalp 'em Indians, scalp 'em," while performing moves that appear to appropriate Native American culture in a parade at Disney's Magic Kingdom theme park. I'm guessing they were probably doing like tomahawk stuff. CNN does not link to the video because apparently they don't want us to see it and form opinions for ourselves. But what would you know? It's on Twitter, so we get to actually watch it. So they're in vaguely American Indian-like clothing, and they're doing screams, and it looks like some of them have their hair in the style, and yeah, and they're saying not so great things. Apparently part of their uniform normally includes this headdress, but Disney didn't allow that because they thought it might be racist. So clearly, they were aware of some aspects of the performance, and they can't just say that they didn't know any of it. But that's exactly what they tried to claim. See, the point of the story isn't that some high schoolers did a racism, it's that Disney did a stupid. Here's the quote from Disney. "The live performance in our park did not reflect our core values, and we regret it took place. It was not consistent with the audition tape the school provided, and we have immediately put measures in place so this is not repeated." And here's the punchline. A spokesperson from the school said the team had performed the routine at Disney before with no issue. "This is our 8th time at Disney," the spokesperson said. "They don't ask what you're going to do as a performance. It's just contest video and they see the uniforms. They asked for nothing else. This is the same performance we've done all 8 times." Now, I'm not from a part of the country where this kind of thing really ever comes up in daily life or discussion. Like, American Indians aren't really a big part of our culture. So I don't really understand the controversy behind this kind of depictions of them as mascots and stuff. I know that it is a national conversation. I just don't really have a say in the matter because I've never thought about it. I'm just surprised that this happened 8 times and nobody complained before now. and then all it takes is one small tweet that only has 28,000 likes on it, and Disney flips out and changes their entire policy. And also lies about it. This next story is significantly more humorous than the last two. Dog abandoned for being gay gets adopted by a gay couple. Part of the reason that this article is so funny is because of how it's written. On Tuesday, an openly gay couple adopted a dog abandoned at a North Carolina animal shelter after its owners mistook him for gay. Like, I've read this article, so I know why they mistook him for gay, but without context, it's like, oh yes, I have mistakenly identified this dog as a homosexual. So the dog's name is Fezco, and he's 4 years old. The owner said he didn't want a gay dog and left him in the shelter's care. Now again, I don't live in, like, the South. Is it normal that if someone saw their dog being gay that they would abandon it? Theoretically, they could have had this dog for 4 years. Are you going to abandon your 4-year-old dog because it's gay? I'm going to work through this. I'm going to work through this, okay? If you're the kind of person who's going to abandon the dog because it's gay, then theoretically you are anti-homosexuality, which generally means that you think it's a choice and you don't think it's something that you're born with. But if you're the one who raised the dog and also it's a dog and you're not planning on like breeding it, why wouldn't you try to make the dog not gay? I don't understand. Unless there's a whole backstory here where they did try to make the dog not gay. Fezco's previous owners discovered him sexually dominating another male dog, causing them to believe he was gay. However, a veterinarian told USA Today that one of the reasons why dogs may engage in such behavior is that they have a high level of testosterone. This drives the dog to breed. It could just be he's trying to assert dominance over the other dog, said the vet. So in actuality, the dog is not gay, he's just such a Chad that he's gonna dominate other male dogs. In a multi-dog context, the behavior could also be explained by dogs having a pecking order and knowing where their pecking order is. So these people who theoretically believed that they could have trained the dog to not be gay gave up the dog, who wasn't gay to begin with, to a gay couple. I think this article has legitimately broken my brain. And our last story of the day has absolutely nothing to do with any contemporary political or societal issues, thank God. We're going to talk about video games. If you've been on the internet for a while, even if you're not a gamer, you've probably heard of the Metal Gear Solid series. One of the most famous stories from that series is that of its creator wanting the other developers to put in some of his crazy ideas and concepts into the game. For example, in the third Metal Gear Solid game, which came out for the PS2, there's a boss battle in which your character fights against an older man. If you don't play the game for several days and then load it up again, the internal clock of the PS2 will load and realize that you've been away for a few days, and the old man will have died of old age, and thus you get to skip the boss fight. That is just a classic Easter egg in a, at this point, retro game. But this story that we're going to talk about goes above and beyond waiting a couple days for a boss character to die. This story comes from The Witcher 3, which was released in 2015. There's a character named Vivian who's at the center of the Blood and Wine expansion. So this Vivian character is turned into like this half-bird, half-human creature, and it's your job to lift the curse. Although there is dialogue in-game that explains that she may only live the lifetime of a bird because of the curse that happened. After the end of the quest, she goes off and lives in a house in some other town. And if you wait for 7 years to pass in-game, which you can do by sleeping, which advances the clock forward a certain number of hours, or you can also use your computer to skip forward a certain amount of time or just speed up the clock of the game for various reasons. If you do that and wait for 7 years to pass in-game and then go and find her new house, you'll find her dead. Meaning it was actually something that was taken into consideration by the developers that waiting for 7 years in the game would result in this character who said that they would die after a couple years, actually dying. Philip Weber, who is the acting lead quest designer of the game, noted the irony of someone discovering the 7-year Easter egg exactly 7 years after the game was released. Again, it was released in 2015, it's 2022, I'm good enough at math to know that that's 7. Even though this article was published by IGN, I would want to shout out xLedalis, who is the YouTuber who actually discovered this. And that is the last story for this week. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GIBI_Devin, and these people over here are my lovely patrons. I would especially like to thank Mark for being my newest patron, who signed up after I talked about it for the first time in literal months in my last week's video. I'm also getting a lot closer to my next big Chris Chan video, so that's exciting. Also, like I mentioned earlier, I got a plan for this. This is gonna get some use, trust me. While I'm waiting for the names to scroll by, I figure I'd tell you a little story. So what I usually do is every year I'll make one big video where I review every movie that I saw in theaters the previous year. I've done this for the last 2 or 3 years. But those videos usually take a long time to make and don't get a lot of views, and I usually don't make money off of them, because every single movie studio decides that they want to own the video because I use a little bit of their trailers in it, which, okay, it's fair. I knew that going in. But anyway, that made me decide to not want to do it this year. So instead, I figured that if I see a movie, I'll just talk about it during this end slate part while the names of my patrons are scrolling by. This week I saw The Lost City. It has Channing Tatum and Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock, and it sucked. Solid 5 out of 10 movie. Did you guys see any cool movies recently? You can leave that in the comments. If you saw The Lost City, what did you think of Channing Tatum's butt?